Right. Hello, everyone. We're going to give some time for people to jump on so we can jump into this webinar. Thank you for being here. Hi, Tara. Hi, Gabby. Hi, Erin.
Hello, ladies.
Hi. All right. So it is 7:01. Let's jump right into this. Thank you, everyone, for being here. My name is Denise. I am founder of Mom Militia, and today we're going to go through a mama's guide on how to prepare 101. We're going to do basics for people to understand how you can prepare your family and things that you can do to keep them safe. So Gabby, you want to go ahead and start the screen share? We're going to show you the structure of what we're going to talk about today. Please feel free to join in the chat. So ask any questions, and at the end of this webinar, we will do a 5-minute Q&A. After I go through this, I'll have the other ladies introduce themselves. So what we're preparing for, we are preparing for natural disasters such as floods, fires, and earthquakes. Today, we're going to go through security, fuel, food storage, water, and then and fire plans, medical, and growing your own food. That is the structure of tonight's webinar. Again, please feel free to leave any Q&A in the chat box, and we will answer some questions at the end. So ladies, you want to introduce yourself? Anybody?
My name is Gabrielle. I'm in Sacramento County. I'm a member of Mom Militia, and we'll leave it at that.
Hello, everyone. My name is Tara. I'm a member of Mom Militia and co-founder of many fun adventures with these ladies, including Denise.
And I'm Erin, and I'm also a member of Mom Militia, and I'm excited to be here tonight.
Super excited. You know, we really want to give you guys information so you can be safe. Right now, we are seeing so many different scenarios happening across the globe. And so what we're going to talk to tonight is not so much focused on one particular incident, but what you should have at all times. Because right now we are facing anywhere in the nation fires. Recently, we had floods in Santa Cruz, and there were so many people who were not prepared. So what are disaster scenarios? Economic collapse, local disasters such as, again, earthquakes, volcanoes, radiation leaks, storms, and fires, terrorist attacks, nuclear strikes, tyranny, pandemics, EMPs, and potential foreign invasion. So that is what we are hoping everyone can get the information to prepare for any and all scenarios. It is really important to be ready at all times for anything that happens. So Gabby, we want to start. Do we have something on the security part? And please, ladies, jump in at any time. No, sorry. So right now we have families who have littles and they're very unaware or don't know how to start. So it's really important, like for my family, we go through a security plan. Just these ladies go through a security plan. My children understand code words. If there was any intruders, home invasions coming through the doors, my children know if we say a code word, that means it's time for you to go and hide, and really practice this. Show locations, safe locations for your children to go wherever that is in your home, so that way they can wait. And it's really important to go through these types of scenarios so that way your children are not scared. Ladies, you want to jump in?
Absolutely. I think one of the important things to do for preparedness for the house is making sure that we all have a fire evacuation route. That if you have young ones, that you have a diagram and you have it in a place that they can see it, and that they understand the protocol for what happens in that sort of emergency.
Yeah, and there's very simple things that if you have a 2-story home, they have emergency fire ladders that you can hook onto a window. That's something you can keep in your closet. These types of things you should be thinking through. What does my house look like? How would I move through this in any number of type of scenarios, emergency scenarios? Train your children, bring in whatever supplies you can have, like fire extinguishers and fire blankets in places near fire sources in your kitchen. kitchen and such, or firewood stove, have those emergency ladders, and then actually practice with them. Because the one thing on all these things is you can't practice enough on any of these techniques or these patterns or these things you want to develop, these skill sets. The more you practice, the more that you'll be able to comfortably move through something when there's a lot of things changing, or in an emergency scenario.
One thing I practice with my kids is not just a code word for an emergency in the house, but if we're out at stores. Sacramento County is one of the big sex trafficking hubs. Kidnappings are common. And my children are young and very adorable, in my opinion. So we have a code word that if we're in a grocery store, that they're immediately to touch mama, or we abandon the cart and we go. And we have a certain code word to where if we're at a park, if they hear that, they come running. My kids, you'll see a little head pop up in the playground and they're looking for me like little meerkats, so practice those things, make it a game. But the more you train with them, the more likely they're to respond favorably in a situation, because children panic more than adults. They get scared and they do weird things. So practice.
Yep. One of the things that we do here in my home is we practice for intruders, which in a scenario to where we have to leave the house, my children are aware of a pathway to get out of the house. They also know how to use radios, walkie-talkies with each other, and we practice them leaving the home and meeting at a safe location, all the meanwhile keeping us on the walkie-talkies. So it's really important, again, to practice with your kids. Everything we do in Mom Militia, we bring back to our homes to practice with our families, because it would be very difficult to get out of a situation when you have crying children and children hanging on to you because they don't know what's going on. So it's one of the things that you can do at home. Also, you can have things around your home for intruders. So I live in Stockton, California, where we had a very high rate of home invasions. Here we have plans. So my husband put things like bear mace around the house, bats around the house, and really know how to use these things, because it's important if you do decide to get something like bear mace, which is a very powerful tool to have to ward off intruders. You want to know how to use it so you don't injure anybody else in your home. So, have a plan, have a security plan, go through this with your family all the time, because it takes repetitive practice in order for your muscle memory to work, so your family's ready to go in case of an emergency.
Absolutely, especially because a lot of adrenaline will be running through you in an emergency, and all of this needs to be second nature.
Yeah. So what?
And one of the,
what?
Well, just besides the code word for your children, for your little ones, also a tone of voice. Train them on a certain tone of voice, because sometimes you might not even hear the word, but they get a certain, they hear the vibration of your voice, and that's an important piece too.
Absolutely. So now we're going to go through how do you prepare your family and your children for bug in or bug out? So this is the website on there? What was it called?
The website is a BOB list. I can type it into the chat.
Yep.
But it has the breakdown of, people often ask, what do I pack? You're not going on vacation. So it depends what you're packing, depends on how long you're going to be away from home. There's a bag to have in your car at all times. There's a 72-hour bag to have ready, and knowing where home insurance, rental insurance, passports, family heirlooms that you don't want to leave behind, certain things ready to go. But this is a resource for what to pack in what kind of bag and what items you would need. Fire starters, for hypothermia, the basic, oh my gosh, my brain just launched, but what kind of materials to have, a foldable shovel, matches, what kind of medical gear. So this is a resource, here it is, aboblist.com would be a good way to get you started for their everyday carry bags and a complete list, so you know what to pack. And then I know Erin had something she wanted to add on, super important with young children. You can go ahead and go over that.
Oh, make sure that the children, young, old, whatever age range they fall in, that they actually are participating in packing their bag. One, because you want to have the things that they want in there. And two, because you always need one comfort item that they chose. I don't care how old your kid is, they have a comfort item and they should put that in their bag. And it's something that should never leave their bag. So this isn't their snuggly that they sleep with, but it's something that they would also consider that item, that it stays in there. So in the case of emergency, they have that comfort item with them that reminds them of home.
And when
And
you
there was-
start researching bug out bags, you'll see that it's broken into, in a 24-hour, a 48, a 72. There's also, you'll see EDC, that stands for everyday carry. That's a concept of what can I keep on me, in my pockets, in my purse, in my car, ready at the window, in your visor, or right at right in where you have your steering, so that's really accessible to you. That is a safety and emergency tool that's high value. A lot in cars, there's a few things that are critical to have, including the emergency tools that break open a window or cut your seatbelt. You don't need that in a bag stuffed in the back of your car. It needs to be right up on your keychain or right where you're driving. There's also a lot of ways you can carry stuff right in the visor of your car. And then think to the bigger things that you would have in the back of your car so that you could prepare for bigger emergencies, car emergencies, weather emergencies, and longer bug outs. You can really think of your vehicle as a really useful tool for building out a more serious EDC kit for it.
Absolutely. And just one more thing, it seems kind of like, seems obvious, but ladies, when you put clothes in your bug outs bag, make sure they fit.
Yes.
Right? And then they dry easy.
It's
Like
all
for those, I've been overseas and had to bucket wash clothes, and there is a difference in how long it takes a pair of jeans to dry versus a pair of thin polyester or cotton pants, like you would normally wear on a hike. You want to be smart in how you're packing your bag. You're not trying to be fashionable. You're trying to protect your legs from, snags on weeds and all that other stuff. So you be mindful of that, and then make sure that your child can physically carry that bag. So it's hard to not, we tend to overpack. And so you want to make sure in an emergency that they can carry that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because everybody has to be able to carry their own bag.
Yes, my children, we do practice hikes and they take their own bag. So we know how far they can go, what their bandwidth is, what we need to take out of their bag. So for instance, my son, he's 7 years old. He has 3 pairs of socks, pair of pants, 2 pairs of shirts, 2 shirts, and his fire starter, his navigation tools, the things that he needs to, and he says to survive. So these are things, sorry, you can hear my kids, to make sure that your children can carry it and have them pack with you. So that way they understand what tools you're putting in their backpack. There was a question, how do you do this with your kids without scaring them? You don't have to tell them that we're practicing for home invasion. Just like they practice at school, we're practicing just in case of an earthquake. We're practicing just in case we have to leave our house. You don't have to give them the details on it, and also make it a fun game. My kids love using walkie-talkies, and they love trying to see how far they can get with it.
Mhm.
These are some things that you can do with your family and with your children to not to scare them, but to prepare them. So like the lady said, make sure they fit. It's really a good idea to invest in a good quality pair of pants. We have some tactical pants. The reason we choose these pants because they dry easily. You're not sweating. It catches that sweat, and you're not catching on to thorns and things like that if you happen to go out. So, ladies, if we want to now touch what bug in and
I want to add one thing.
Yep.
Oh, for that bug out bag for clothing, or a lot of times no one thinks of this one. I grew up in the 70s in a snow country, and we used good old bread bags, plastic bread bags between our socks and our boots. And I can tell you, after spending 30 years in backcountry and wilderness experiences, it's always one of my go-tos. I make sure I have plastic bags of varying sizes, ones that I can fit over between my socks and my boots. Should you have soaking wet socks and boots, you will be able to stay warm and survive days and days and days if you have that in your bag. They're super lightweight. Also, if you have bigger ones, you can make makeshift wind and rain protection. Yeah, I can't state enough how important plastic bags can be useful in survival scenarios.
Absolutely. And everybody should have their own IFAC in their bags. And that is an individual first aid kit. So my son has one, my husband has one, and I have one, because we're not relying on each other's supplies.
And know how to use it, know what they're for. It's really important to practice with this, because so many times we buy items, we're like, this is gonna be really cool in our bag, but we don't know how to use them. You know, my son, they practice with their Swiss Army knives, because those things are very sharp and they have to know how to use these tools. When you're packing for a bug out location, that's an extreme situation, right? Extreme situations is when someone is coming, they are coming to your door and they are trying to take your children. And when I say they, anybody, right? Trying to take your kids, your family safety is at risk being in your home. That is a bug out situation, to where you take your bags, you take your IFAC, and you get in the car and you go. Bug in is where you're assessing your terrain, you're assessing the situation. It would be more of a security risk for you to leave your house versus staying home and staying bunkered in. And we're going to go through what that is, bunkering in, how to prepare for food. Gabby, did you want to jump in?
So for bug in, so you hear often that would be like, look at your home, you know, is it a defendable space? If something was going to happen, if it's a flood or a fire, you're probably not going to stay home. Most other things you are, you know it, you have food stores, you have all of these things. If you're bugging out, you're only taking what you can physically carry. And then you need to know where you're going. Don't just blindly drive down the road and hope you stumble on a place, right? Because then you set yourself up for being robbed, because other people are trying to bug out too. When you're bugging in though, that's kind of like you get into that mindset of homesteading versus long-term bunkering in. So you're prepping food, you know, your canned goods, that's where all of that comes in, because you're going to be there to access it. You start hearing people talking about Mylar bags and the Patriot Supply, the big 72-hour food kits. Those are more like something that you can pick up and haul should you need to leave, because I'm not going to be taking 30 quarts of canned goods. That's glass that can break in my car. It's taking essential room from things like sleeping bags and tents if we're bugging out. I'm not taking all of that canned food with me. So it's a different mindset. You're preparing to secure your home and be there for a long period of time. You need to be able to cook food. If the power goes out, that might be firewood, it might be propane. You need to be able to access water. And we're going to go over that a little bit later. Should we not have a good clean water supply, there's ways to prepare that at home, versus if you're on the road and you're needing to carry that out on foot, or have things like filtration devices should you need to find water along the way. So it's a completely different mindset, and it's a different way of preparing. They aren't always interchangeable.
Absolutely. And with that, it is very important that you write down important phone numbers and addresses. In case your cell phone goes out, in case your GPS goes out, you want to have a list of people who are already preparing, because you don't want to go to someone's house should you not feel safe in your house and take your food and they don't have any food. So you want to really have a plan with a group of people, right? Write down the phone numbers, write down the addresses, and get very familiar with maps. I think a lot of us have depended too much on GPS and all of the advances that we've had with technology, but this is where your mindset will have to change. You have to take it back to things before technology and really understand how to use maps, how to read them, how to figure out how much gas you need to get from point A to point B. But a notebook with all important information is incredibly important to have. Please write those numbers down.
Yeah, and you definitely want to have a flashlight in your car along with maps, because if you're a passenger and someone's driving and you're trying to move quickly, you're going to need that flashlight to look at that map if you don't have access to GPS or a cell phone. So we like to, you know, I'm old enough to know what it was like when we had to travel as adults without cell phones and had to have maps in cities or in the mountains, and they're very different, you know, so it's really good to practice in concentric rings out from around where you live. When you plan day trips to go somewhere or weekend trips, also try to add in these different practices of make it a game, like we've said for the kids and the family, but be really intentional around, boy, is this a route we would head if we wanted to escape some kind of some type of natural disaster or an emergency? Which way, what would it look like if I head north? What would it look like if I head west? What if I headed south? What would I be dealing with? And start looking at multiple hours out from where you live and getting really familiar with those roads without maps, and also have necessary maps in case you have to navigate mazes of a community. It's really important.
Yeah, and those maps, like Tara said, are very different. There's very different maps from city to mountain. And so someone said MapQuest, that's not always going to be the best resource. Get yourself an original map, a real map, and put it down on your dining room table with your family and kind of figure out how it works, where your destinations would be, and really have a plan. Like Gabby said, if it gets to an extreme situation and you have to leave your house, write a plan with your family, have that open communication with friends or family who you're deciding to go with, or go to the bunkers that have them in California. Yeah, I'm not going to a bunker in Disneyland. I don't know the situation there. I'm not, obviously it depends on where you're at, but we're not going to travel that far. We want to go to a situation or to an area that feels safe for us. And that's something that you're going to really have to talk with your friends or with your family on. Maybe somebody has a piece of land somewhere. Maybe, you head to the mountains and you go camping for a little bit, a family camping trip. Things get really, really bad. You don't want to go into the cities. You want to leave the situation. And like I said, country, land, mountains. You don't want to go to a high densely population of area, because desperate people do desperate things. Also, if you have multiple cars, you don't want to pack all of your food and all of your supplies in one car. Should anything happen and that car gets robbed or it breaks down, whatever happens, you want to be able to have another car. So we have 2 cars. 2 cars are packed with the same supplies. We're just being safe about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I will say one more thing in emergency. Under fire and snow, because I live in an area that has snow emergencies and fire emergencies a lot. And even with active GPS, they will send you on the wrong road. So and you can end up in a very life-threatening situation. I mean, recently people were having to be rescued from being directed the wrong way through Google Maps and their GPS. And, so don't underestimate having maps. But also, if you're stuck in a situation, stop and find locals to ask, because they'll tell you there's no way that road's safe or open. And you really need to, consider that as part of it and not just rely on what you're being told by your phone.
Absolutely. And also consider, we're talking about various different scenarios here. So you should have the extreme scenario, and then you should have there was an earthquake and we need to go to Auntie's house. So something very complex and very simple.
Yes, and someone said a compass. A compass is a very good idea, and it's super fun for the kids to learn how to do it. In Mom Militia, we did a trip out with the kids, and they learned how to use their compass. We learned how to use our compass, and we learned how to do our pace counts, which is our navigation, because you don't know how, you don't know where you're at. How are you going to get to your destination? So compasses are incredibly important. Where do you store your go bag? So we have a bag in our car. That's the emergency bag, right? We get that phone call, we got to get going. But we keep our bags very close to us, either in the garage or in our home, to where we can grab it and go. Very accessible. Keep it where, your kids can grab it. Don't keep it on high shelves. Any supplies that you need to get, make sure that they're at a level to where everybody can grab them. You don't want to have your first aid for your children up on the high shelf and they can't get it. So keep everything very accessible to your family.
Absolutely. And in your car is incredibly important, because in various different scenarios, we might not be able to go home to grab a bag. So having a 72-hour bag in your trunk, most vehicles have a thing where you can pop it up, where you put the spare tire, fits really easily in there. It should be compact enough to put in those wells. in your trunk.
Yes, and
And to
speaking of
finish, you know,
tire, know how to change a
Mhm.
tire, right? Know how to change a tire. Be familiar with your vehicle. Know, keep your gas, and we're going to go through fuel. Make sure you have a full tank of gas. And I know that's really difficult to have, but if you have to leave in case of an emergency and some crazy things are happening in your community, the first things to go is going to be gas. We already saw that. We saw people filling up plastic bags with gas. We saw people filling up, milk jugs with gas. So this is how you store your gas. Gabby, you want to go through it?
So how much to store? It depends on where you're going. So you always want to have at least one spare tank of gas available. And gas stored in the proper cans, please. I mean, the last emergency, we saw people filling up garbage bags in the back of their truck. That's it. Gas is extremely flammable. You need to transport it and store it correctly. But you want a minimum, at least 25% of what it takes you to get your bug out location. We tell our ladies to have enough to go 200 to 300 miles. And it depends on the gas mileage of your car. If you have 2 cars, then you should have enough to get both of those cars that distance. So you want as many gallons as it takes to use that. And don't just leave it sitting in your garage and forget about it. Gas, there's certain parts of it that you evaporate. It won't be good that whole time. You want to rotate it, every couple months, fill up your gas tank and then go refill the canisters, or there's an additive you can add to stabilize the fuel. Maybe you need diesel for your vehicle. It depends. Maybe you're way out remote in the country and you need more gas or diesel than others. So those are things to think about, and pay attention to your local restrictions on storing things. We're all across the country. Laws vary. There are sometimes county code or ordinances on where you can store and not store. So be aware of that, but make sure you have gasoline approved containers.
And always have some fluids that your car needs, oil filters, some water for radiators. Those are real basic things. Besides knowing how to change your tire, again, that's an exercise that you can do with your family. Everyone should be comfortable to know where they are, to know what the names of the different types of tools, make sure you have what you need. And then you can also have kits that are emergency fillers for tires that can be used in certain scenarios. And know even the simple spots of how to open the hood of your car. Sometimes, every car is slightly different. And some of them can honestly be confusing where they're at. And if you're in an emergency situation, you don't want to be stumbling through, looking for something or looking through a guidebook on where it is in your car. You can also make sure you have jumper cables, and you can take one step further and buy the little kits that are the self-starter jumpers. So you don't have to ask someone help.
That is a game changer.
It's a battery that helps.
Especially as a female, we should all have those in our car. We should never be asking a strange man to jump our car.
Absolutely. My daughter has it. And, you don't want to ask people like that because, again, desperate people do desperate things. I know we all saw like the scary movies where people are flying you down and they take your car. So be mindful of things like that. There was a question on what kind of backpack. So my husband and I do have tactical backpacks because it has so many pockets in it and it's really easy to fit absolutely everything. And my son has a backpack that connects in the front and the back. So that way the weight gets evenly distributed. Be very mindful of the type of supplies that you get. Make sure they're comfortable. Make sure your kids can wear them for a long term. Again, we do hiking. To know how heavy his backpack is, how far is he able to go, and know that backpack is secure, especially the ones that buckle in the front. We found that it feels so much more comfortable for him, and it's not just a backpack that's weighing you down in the back.
And I have so many different types of backpacks, but I will also say add in, it's always good to have a dry bag or two.
Yes.
They can have really heavy duty ones to plastic cases to really thin, like ripstop nylon. That's actually, I've found quite successful a lot. But to think about what would having them for emergencies, having them for certain items, it's always good to have 1 or 2 of those in your kit.
Yeah. What was next on the timeline?
Water.
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 Want to show the slide?
So why don't you want to just drink it from a creek? Because you'll get sick. So when, if let's say, well, they could mess with our tap water, but we won't go there. But so you bug out and you're looking for a sustainable water source. Many of you, if you've traveled overseas or well, in certain parts of the United States, let's be honest, there are organisms you need to be mindful of. You don't want to just walk up to a creek or collect rainwater and use that. You're going to need a lot of water to cook your, whatever you've packed in your bag to sustain your family. So these are the things that you're keeping, being mindful of on why we're suggesting that you have, life straws in your packs, or iodine tablets, or the little water drops to have in your kit. Also at home, if there's a huge storm, or if there's something wrong with our water supply and you need to fill up your bathtub or your wash machine with water, it's a good idea to have a way to purify it as well.
Yeah, I particularly don't like life straws. They're really hard to use. Like, you've got to like really suck that water out, but you can also get the water purifiers. There's also collapsible water containers that you can like fit under your bed. Were you able to get a picture of that, Gabby?
Well, and
Yes.
Sawyer minis are a good alternative. They're easier to use than a life straw. And you can actually pump water and put it into a bag and then move it into bottles or containers, different than just sucking the life straw. But yeah, the life straw and the Sawyer minis are real game changers for not only emergency, disaster situations, but also for backcountry, particularly like the Sawyer mini.
So there are water bricks,
It does a lot more gallons too than the
Yeah.
life straw.
The water bricks are really easy to store, like in your garage, especially if you have a small space. Gabby has this up here that's not very expensive, but you can put those in your garage or your closet. You want to keep it in a cool, dark place because you don't want, water does go bad if there's algae that grows on there. So we also have the collapsible bags to where you can fill it up. You can put it underneath the seat of your car. You can put it underneath the seat of underneath your bed. So it's really important to have that water supply, because when you're trying to cook your food, you're going to need water. So you want to make sure you absolutely have that water secured and put in your home. Otherwise, if you're going to store rice, you're not going to be able to cook it because you don't have any water.
And when, we'll move into fire on this too, it's really important to carry with you a way to make fire. This can help you to boil water to sterilize it. And also, as like Denise said, to cook, but it's really important. It can keep you warm. It can be used as an emergency signal. It's really critical to think about fire in all it. And so at the very minimum, carrying some type of a fire starter kit. And if you really want to get into the survival level, there are lighters that are windproof and waterproof. There are fire starting kits that have tinder that are also waterproof. You can literally light them under any conditions, and you can have a flint and steel or magnesium fire starter. It's good to have all those little things. They don't take up much space, but they're critical to help you purify water, to help you cook food, to stay warm, to signal, all the different things, to give light. Really important.
Absolutely. And to go back to water real quick, and fire, it ties in. When we're boiling water to purify it, it's really important that we actually give it the time once it actually hits a boil to purify. A lot of times we just let it get to the boil and we think it's good. No, it needs to sit for a good 10 minutes longer if you're in altitude.
Yeah, and a really good trick to keep, say power goes out and you don't have a heater, you don't have a fireplace, those terracotta pots are really good supply to have. You could put 2 bricks, you could put bricks on the side and put the pot on the top with those little candles you get at the dollar store. Put them there and it really does warm a room. You can also use it for an oven. So there's multiple different uses for these types of things. You want to be able, and they have them at the dollar store. So go to the dollar store, get your terracotta pots, and get yourself some bricks and some candles. There's your heat source, there's your way to cook your food. So there's a lot of really good supplies at the dollar store that you can grab. Let's see. Also, sorry, I was looking at the chats. Also, we all have barbecue pits, right? Your barbecue pits are a really good source. to cook your food. Make sure you have your wood, your chips, your propane. Also, they sell, you can find it at garage sales, the camping stoves. So these are things that you can put in your garage, store them away, have your camping stoves, have all of the things, so that way you're able to cook your food and stay warm.
Yes. So medical. So there will come a time if things go south, or even if you're dealing with a flood, Hurricane Katrina, we saw it, we've seen it with fires, to where they run out of hospital supplies. Hospital supplies come in trucks. Right now, we're dealing with supply chain issues due to truckers moving for freedom, right? So we're going to start seeing ramifications from that, but you tend to see those in emergency situations as well. There is an end to the supply. So you need to know, one, what to do if you get cut off from essential medications, and two, if you rely on something, a blood pressure medication, an inhaler for asthma, etc.
A mood stabilizer. If you're on a mood stabilizer, you need to have extras, because going through a withdrawal from a mood stabilizer is very dangerous.
Mm-hmm. So you need a plan for that. You should have extra medication for that, and then extra supplies to hold you through.
Yeah. A lot of people try to get off pharmaceuticals, right? They're like, we're not taking that, we're going natural. But if you do have that prescription, we also have to think about bartering. There are some people who are not going to go natural, but they do need your medication. This is something I have in a Ziploc bag in case you do need to barter it. I mean, and this, we're talking about like extreme situations where we got to go and somebody has something that you want. And this also goes along with food, and we'll get into the food situation in a little bit. So Erin, do you want to talk about maybe some basic herbs or basic things that someone should have in their cabinet?
Absolutely. I like to go with super simple herbs, not the sexy ones. That's echinacea and golden seal. They're really good. They're really good herbs for bacterial or viral infections. They're also good because they're cold herbs at bringing down fevers easily. I suggest that you go onto a site and get a basic homeopathy kit. They're not that expensive. You don't need to have a lot of knowledge to be able to read the insert inside of them and figure out how to use them in case of emergency. I like to make sure I have a lot of garlic on hand. I like to make sure I have something as a nervine like poppy, passion flower, or even valerian to calm us down. And Gabby, I'm missing something. I talked about an antiviral, a nervine. What am I missing?
Adaptogen.
In an emergency, I'm not worried about that. I think everybody should have kratom, and that's a good painkiller. And it's also something that is so powerful that they're trying to regulate it. The FDA is trying to regulate it. So I would go ahead and make sure you have some of those as well. Of course, there are other remedies as well, colloidal silver, etc. I like to stick with herbs, but those are also really important ones that are helpful as well.
Yeah, and having some CBD or THC creams for pain, or for the oral for pain meds, they really are effective.
Mm-hmm.
Before colloidal silver, she said kratom, Kratom.
Get the green. There's 3 different strains. There's white, red, and green. Get the green. It's middle of the road.
Yep. All right. What's next on our?
Having a healthy mindset. The supply chain, we're noticing a lot of the quick prep foods are being pulled, the box foods, the canned foods. That's actually good for your body. When you're in high stress situations, and we have been under high stress for quite a few years, it affects you physically and physiologically, but also being healthy and keeping costs down. So when you're going and you're starting to build your supplies, Erin mentioned it earlier, making sure that you're just buying 2 or 3 extra. If you're buying a can of green beans, buy a few more. slowly build up your supplies. If you have the money to go drop a couple $100 on food, do it. But if you don't, build it up slowly. Get an extra bag of rice, get an extra bag of beans, assuming you would eat that normally. Because if your kids won't eat it and you try and shove it down their throats in an emergency, they're going to hold out and be stubborn and starve. So keep that in mind. But one of the things that we wanted to share is things that you can do at home to help you get more greens in your body without upping your budget dramatically. So Tari, do you want to go over the microgreens?
Yeah, microgreens and sprouts are easy to grow in your home, in any home. You can even grow sprouts in a mason jar with a cheesecloth lid at the very simplest. The seeds are inexpensive, and you can really create an ever-producing cycle of fresh, nutrient-dense greens within your home. Even if you live in an apartment, you can use a window. There's lots of ways to look at how to bring in the supply chain hyper local, so that think about what can I grow for myself in my home? What can I grow on my patio? What can I grow on the land that I live on? Even if you don't own the land, even if it's a small plot, you can grow something in every space. You can grow mushrooms, edible, safe mushrooms under your kitchen sink. There's so many different ways you can grow hydroponically. This is a really fun thing to get your kids involved in. And honestly, it's just pretty. If you can grow herbs, you can grow salad greens, a lot of different things actually you can grow hydroponically inside. You can build your own version. You can get small little ones like in this picture for $40 online. Here's a tower garden, which you can do ones inside or out depending on lighting and light systems. The idea is to start thinking, what can I grow? And then this also helps us, like we were talking about the healthy mindset, this helps us to start incorporating more nutrient dense and fresh food and into our lives. So, you can put sprouts in soup, you can put it on salads, you can put it on tacos, you can put them in a whole bunch of things. You can just eat mouthfuls of them. And it sounds, there's also things where we talked about buying a few extras. Think about it in terms of things like onions and apples and garlic. You can actually store these things. These are all classic root crops. And you don't have to have what we think of as a traditional root cellar to start holding more of them in bulk in your home for months at a time. You can use cool closets. You can use sections of the garage. There's a lot of information on how to do this. And then start to think about simple ways. Like if you have a big tub of onions that you bought through a farmer's market or through a deal somewhere at the local grocery store, or you grew them, you can do simple things like make simple pickled onions in a jar with a simple solution that is ready to eat right away, and keep it in your fridge and start adding those to your daily meals, just like you would sprouts. And think about them as, how will I grow the food, procure it, store it, and actually eat it and consume it in different ways than we've been used to over the last 20, 30, 40, 50 years, where we've been cut off from how our grandparents and great grandparents and humans throughout history thought about and dealt with food in their lives.
Absolutely. And it's really important because we are talking about at some point in time not have, in an emergency situation, we're not going to necessarily have our boxed foods. So survivability is really a lifestyle and a mindset change. So it's easier to stay fuller longer if your diet is higher in fiber. So these look like roots, carrots, radishes, potatoes, sweet potatoes. That's going to keep you sustained longer than simple carbohydrates and even protein. Yeah. Right. And so if we incorporate this stuff into our everyday living, in an emergency situation, it doesn't feel extreme. It feels normal.
Yeah. And in those, extreme situations to where you can go to grocery outlet and get yourself some canned vegetables, some canned fruit, store it in your garage or store it in a cool place. You can also do Mylar bags. Mylar bags are to keep the nutritional value in your foods. So get some of those. Those are available on Amazon. You get your oxygen absorbers and you research what you need in order to pack your food. Someone said freeze drying. A freeze dryer machine is actually very expensive, and there is a shortage in supply for, like, you know, all of these websites that sell it, there is a shortage. So you want to make sure you can, if you can, get a food sealer. These are really, they're about $80. You can get them to, you know, seal your food, put it in a deep freezer, rotate your cans, your fruits and vegetables, put them in a space to where it's cool and it's dark. And I mean, if you can, get a canner. You can can meat, you can can vegetables, you can do so many things with the canner. I'm just learning about it. Gabby showed me how to can meat, and I buy a pack of meat every week extra, and that's what I can, and that's what I put away. It's really a mindset to, oh, go ahead.
Well, and you should think about if the power goes out and you have a lot of stuff in deep freezers, or even just your big regular fridge and freezer. So if you have canning materials with you and you have the skill sets, or you have, you know, an ability to dehydrate food and different things, start to immediately go, okay, I'm moving into the mode of preserving this food, moving it out of refrigeration and freezer and into forms, because I can't eat it all right now and I don't want to lose all this. Now I'm going to move it into a canned storage situation, or dehydrated or such. So think, if you have those tools and you have those skill sets and you have the mindset, then that's not a difficult scenario for you, and you don't lose something if you lose power for a week.
Good, and you reminded me, so when you are setting aside food, you're also saving salt, sugar, flour, alcohol, vinegar. Some of those items you're going to be using to cook, others you're going to be using to help preserve food that you have, or if you need to make medicine. You know, Erin listed some essential herbs. If you know how to tincture, you're going to need some of those items. Vinegars if you start preserving. So those are essential items that you're going to need down the road. You're not just stocking up on meat, rice, beans, and then dehydrated or freeze-dried produce and such. You want to have those other basics as well.
It takes a lot of flour to make bread. Have flour, have yeast, and also, not along with thinking about the things that your family's going to need, we also need to remember about the bartering system. It's really important to have supplies on hand. Buy an extra thing of salt and seal it and use that and put it away in case, because eventually there's going to be people who are going to need it, and they're going to have something that you're going to need as well.
Absolutely.
So,
alcohol and sugar is a really good one to keep on hand for bartering, and both of them preserve.
Absolutely. So we could talk forever on this stuff. We're already at 7:50. So we're going to do 5 minutes of Q&A. If you guys have any questions, please put it in the chat or put it in the Q&A box, and then we'll go through them and answer them. Otherwise, we are going to try, I'm not going to promise, but we're going to try to get this video on our website, mamalitia.org. If you are interested in joining our organization, you can go to mamalitia.org, and under the contact us, there are 2 forms to complete. Once those forms are completed, you'll then be contacted by a team member. Our organization is a national organization. We don't care your political affiliation. We don't care any of that. Our mission here is to protect our children, to get our families prepared for whatever situations do arise, and to really create another community. We have a community of women across the United States who are talking to each other face-to-face, training with each other face-to-face, and bringing our families together, because what we are seeing is the new pillars of society being built out. We are here to create something else because we're not happy with the society that we have now. So let's see. I don't see any questions here.
One of the ladies did catch us. We forgot to list oils. Yes, you also want oils to be able to cook. So yes, so that's in the chat thread, but I'm just saying it out loud.
Awesome. So I don't see any questions. Again, we'll try to post this on our website. No promises though. Please, let us know if you have any questions. If not,
here's one. Oh, everyone's been typing. Here we go. What site can you go to get canned meat? I'm real picky. I have a lot of food allergies, so I tend to can my own meat, but you know, you can get like the big tuna and canned chickens. You can see them at Costco if you still shop there. I've seen canned meat on Patriot Supply. Do you guys have any other suggestions?
I would suggest canning it yourself.
Scared to can. Yeah, I'll do it myself.
Yeah, mostly because, you know, there's a lot of autoimmune issues out there right now. You can control what goes in your food much better. It's also more cost effective.
Make your own soap. Someone asked about hygiene.
Absolutely.
Make your own soaps. It's it's a
These-
class that. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, these skill sets are important. So the more you do them, the more you'll be comfortable with them and realize they really are quite simple.
Making soap
and
is
it can be
super
intimidating
easy.
if you've never done it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, I just wanted to mention menstruation cups yes. So ladies, with your bug out bag, don't forget about your own body. You know, we get focused on tools and food and our children. And you know, you're gonna run out of tampons, you know, so have a cup. Go
And
ahead.
you guys, tampons are garbage. You should not be putting that in you.
In your body.
Mm-mm.
So cloth pads that can be washed, menstrual cups, you need plan for that because it's
Mhm.
not just going to go away because you're stressed. It's probably going to knock on the door more often. So thank you for mentioning that. For pets, what should we prep for our pets?
I have 4 dogs. I have 2 very large Akitas and 2 very small Chihuahuas. I mean, at the end of the day, my dogs are going to eat whatever I give them because they're hungry. And so every week I go to Big Lots and I get myself a pack of dog food and I put it away in the garage. You can make your own food, but that does get pretty costly, especially if you have larger dogs. So I would suggest, again, $6, put it away for a rainy day.
Also, on the animal thing, because let's be practical here. There might be a point in time where you need to figure out whether caring for the animal is something that you can do any more strategically. It sounds terrible, but this is part of, you know, mindset. Is there a point in time within your family's plan that the animal can't be a priority anymore? And that sounds terrible, but I'm just being pragmatic.
No, I understand. You know, of course, everybody has to make their own decisions. We have our dogs because they're security dogs. We have 2 very large dogs that we want to make sure nobody's going to harm our family. So we're going to keep our dogs. So we in that, and that's something in your family. If you're going to decide, are you able to financially care for your animals? Is it going to be your kids or your dogs? And so that is where we go and we get the cheapest of dog foods and we just put it away. You know, because I'm not going to get rid of my dogs. And, you know, that's something, again, a security issue that you're going to want to have them just in case.
Not all dogs are security dogs.
Correct. My Chihuahuas are. So Gabby, you want to touch on this real quick about the radios?
Which one? What kind of range do walkie-talkies have? That depends on the walkie-talkie.
Yeah.
So, you know, you get one from Target or Walmart, the little box radios, maybe a few blocks, depending on, you know, they're more line of sight, maybe a few blocks. You get into the Midlands, still line of sight. You upgrade to the Baofangs. It depends on if it has a removable antenna or not. And it depends on what frequency you're on. Are you on MERS, UHF, VHF? If I'm speaking Klingon, the answer is it depends on the radio. So the real question is, what are you trying to get out of a radio? Are you trying to communicate with the neighbor down the street? Are you trying to communicate with your family? Or are you trying to communicate with somebody in another county? And then you probably want a radio that you would be able to use through receivers like a GMRS frequency. So you can write that down to look that up. And then you would want to get into the radiosities or the Baofangs. CB is on AM. So that would be what your truckers and others use. You cannot communicate with a CB radio with a walkie-talkie FM type radio. So that's a whole training of itself. We like Baofangs, but the FCC changed their rules to where a lot of the radios you buy right now, you cannot remove the antenna. So it gets tricky. So that's a long answer. I hope that helped a little bit. Next, go ahead.
Next one is
And
how do you
then
stock
there's
for,
a,
you make your own formula and you cloth diaper. Right now, we are
Mhm.
seeing an extreme price hike of diapers and formula. And honestly, it's all garbage. So this is where you can just duck go it, learn how to make your own formula, and really, I mean, you can go on
You can get
up.
powdered goat's milk to make your own formula. I used to make our own formula.
All right, so again, you can go to momalitia.org to see the information of who we are and what we do, and hopefully we can get this video up. Please share it, and if you would like to join, again, you can go into the Contact Us tab and you can fill out the information. All of our members are vetted and have to go through a background check. We want to make sure that we are bringing people into a secure community, so because we are trusting you with our families. So
There's one more.
okay.
I am diabetic. What extra things should I do? You guys want to?
I would say, depending on the severity of your diabetes, I would make sure that you have extra medication. At the risk of oversimplifying diabetes herbally, I would have cinnamon bark as a replacement. But again, it depends on the severity and the type of diabetes. And I don't want to oversimplify that. And for a disclaimer, I'm not giving medical advice.
No medical or legal advice here.
And
All
one
right.
last time, so somebody's asked, how do you join? To join, you go to our website, Momalitia, MAMALITIA.org, O-R-G. Go to more, right? It's on the far right. It says more, and then drop down to contact us. And there's 2 forms. You got to fill them out. It'll take you a while. And then you fill those out, follow the instructions. And then there is they're checking your background, they're checking your social media. There may be an interview. And so you'll start that process there.
Right. Well, thank you everyone for joining us tonight. And thank you to these amazing ladies who always bring such magnificent knowledge to the conversation. We hope to see you in the community, and please be prepared, be ready for any and everything that may happen in this uncertain time. Have a blessed night, and we'll see you soon.